Big John Miller Band, they're incredible. We're glad they're here with us. We need some spice. Everybody's a little hot and settle down back there, but it's time to get up and rock and roll here in just a minute. Hey, in the meantime, we've got an incredible speaker here tonight that knows the ins and outs of Washington, and his name is Tim Phillips. He's the president of Americans for Prosperity. Tim is currently touring with the Hot Air Tour promoting global warming skepticism. The Hot Air Balloon Tour was here at MacArthur Park just a couple of days ago, about a week or 10 days ago, and I was fortunate enough to be able to attend that. Tim is also promoting increased domestic drilling. His group, Save My Ballot, promotes Joe the Plumber to disagree with the Employer Free Choice Act. In addition, Tim is working to defeat the clean energy legislation and no stimulus. Please, let's welcome Mr. Tim Phillips.
Someone told me it's summertime in Arkansas this time of year. I guess that's right? Well, I'm a South Carolina boy. I wouldn't know about that, I guess. But thank y'all all for coming. I'll tell you something. We owe a big thank you to the ArkansasTeaParty.com folks. Tom and the gang, don't we? Well done. Well, you guys can rest easy. You can rest easy. This morning, President Obama gave a speech to the American Medical Association. I don't know if you saw it or not, but he said, don't worry, he's got your health care covered. I have a question for you. Do you trust President Obama and the other Washington politicians with your parents or with your children or grandchildren's health care? No, you can't. No, you can't. There's legislation that's going to be introduced very soon in the United States Senate. And when you hear about this health care reform and taking care of the uninsured, I want you to remember just three things. Their health care means three things for you and your family. Number one, it means a government bureaucrat between you and your doctor. When you need to make a decision for your children or for a loved one, their health care will mean a bureaucrat right in the middle of that, making decisions based on their priorities instead of your priorities. Number two, when you hear their version of health care, it means longer lines for the basic medical treatments we need. You guys have seen the coverage in Canada and in the United Kingdom of how long they have to wait for even the most basic health care, basic tests, much less important procedures. It means longer lines. At Patients United Now, which is one of our groups that Americans for Prosperity is pushing, we have a television ad up right now. You can see it at our website. It's a lady named Shauna from Canada. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor, and she was told by her government, because they have single payer, that in 6 to 8 months she could have treatment for her brain tumor. Well, as she puts it, in 6 to 8 months she would have been dead. So she had to mortgage her home, come to the United States with the money, and get the treatment that saved her life. Friends, I don't think that's okay for Canada. It sure isn't good enough for the United States of America. It sure isn't. And when you hear President Obama and Speaker Pelosi and the other politicians in Washington talking about health care reform, think about this. Their version means treatment denied based on your age or if you have chronic illnesses. Now think about what I just said for a moment. That's not an exaggeration. If you read Tom Daschle's book, who is really the health care czar for their side, he talks about it very openly. And the idea is this. People in their 70s or 80s or maybe even in their 60s, they don't need certain kind of treatments because of their age. They need to step aside and let other folks have those treatments and lower the cost of health care. That's what their version of government-run health care means. It means health care rationing based on your age and based on your chronic illnesses. I mean, think about folks who have chronic illnesses, often who are very young. Under the health care plan being discussed by these politicians in Washington, it'll be health care denied based on your age or based on the chronic illnesses. So it's an important issue, and we urge you to get involved. And there's just one other issue I want to briefly talk about, because we're here tonight talking about freedom and talking about protecting the freedoms we have in the United States. I'll tell you, there's a piece of legislation, I'm just curious by a show of hands. How many of you have heard of this cap and trade legislation? Have you guys heard of that? Good! Almost everyone in this crowd has heard of cap and trade. Because what it means is this. It's an energy tax on anything that moves and on every American citizen. You know, it's frustrating to hear President Obama stand up and say, hey, look, we're only going to raise taxes on the very rich. I'm not sure who the very rich is under the president's definition, because what it means in reality are 60 to 80% increases in gasoline prices for your cars and trucks and minivans. It means almost double the home utility cost to cool your homes on these hot Arkansas summers or to warm them in the wintertime. It means higher prices on big ticket items, kitchen appliances and televisions. Why? Because it takes more money because of the energy cost under cap and trade to transport these products into the big stores that will eventually get to you. So I would urge you on those two issues. If there are two threats that are the biggest threats to our freedom this year, it really is the healthcare takeover that they're proposing and the cap and trade takeover. And I hope you're going to fight them, and I know you are. I see what's happening here tonight. I see the signs here. I see the energy here. And I want to thank you for being out and being a part of this. And I'll tell you something. Whenever they think they've got us beaten, they don't understand Americans. Because when Americans are threatened, we rise up and face a challenge. Is that right? We face a challenge, and that's what you're doing. I tell you, I grew up in a little town called Lyman, South Carolina, 1,200 people. And my mom worked the 4 to midnight shift at a factory, a wire factory. My dad drove a charter bus for 15 years. When my mom got home at midnight, usually just after midnight, that was my favorite time of day as a kid. I remember she worked on a concrete floor, she had steel-toed shoes, and her feet would hurt at night. And when she came home, I would have hot water warmed up, and she would come in, I would put that pan down, and she would soak her feet in that hot water. And we would talk late at night, and my best memories from my childhood are sitting there after midnight with my mom just talking at night and listening to what she said. And she said some things that always have stuck with me. She said, son, it don't matter where you began. What matters is where you end up. And this is the United States of America. Anything is possible in the United States of America. She would tell me that people, you can do, son, she would say, you can do anything. You can go anywhere. It doesn't matter where you started, it matters where you end, because you live on the greatest country on earth. And you know what? I believe that. And like my mom was on most issues, she was right about that. And today my wife and I have 4 children. And every night we talk to them about the American dream. That in America you can dream any dream and make it come true because freedom lives here. Opportunity lives here. Hope lives here. And hope doesn't live here, and freedom doesn't live here because of some government. It lives here because we're free as individuals. We're free as families to do what we think is best, to worship God as we see fit, to go out and live our lives. And I'll tell you something, the American dream that my mom told me about, that I've told my children about, that you probably tell your kids and grandkids about, it's under threat today. It's in danger today. And we owe it to them and to the next generation. There are so many kids here. We owe it to those generations to stand up and fight. And I know you're going to do that. You're here today doing that. And it's an honor to be on this side with you. Thank you very much.
Our next performer is Rhonda Gunn. She's the recipient of 7 #1 hits in contemporary Christian charts. Rhonda is a singer and a songwriter and has written for Tanya Tucker, Rita Coolidge, Barbara Mandrell, Barbara Fairchild, and Rhonda has worked with Ronnie Millsap Music Publishing and Warner Brothers Records in Nashville, Tennessee. Let's all welcome Miss Rhonda Gunn.